Hi, I'm Zach Holyoak with Saddlery. Today we're going to teach you how to build a 6-inch back cinch for a team roper. All right, for today, to build this 6-inch back cinch, the materials we're going to need to do, or to have this, is we've got a square here. We've got some fillers that we've made so we can shape our keepers around them. They're the width of a back billet that you would use on your saddle. We've got our keepers for our back cinch. We've got some patterns for design, or stitch design. Pair of nippers. We've got a round knife. We've got a number 6 French edger. We've got a point knife for a guppy, a number 1 edger, a stitch groover, a die pen, a glass slicker. We've got some canvas, little beeswax on it, a nice piece of steel that we can set a rivet on, a 48-ounce mallet, a glue pot, our rivet setters. We got a number 1 slot punch, a number 9 dry punch, our hardware for our back cinch. We also have our scratch awl and our number 9 copper rivet. We're using 13 to 14 ounce skirting leather for our back cinch. Our Latigo liners, probably an 8 to 7 ounce, and our desired pattern that we're going to use today, our shape that we got. So to start on our 6-inch back cinch today, we'll run through the measurements on this. This back cinch that we've created, it is roughly about 40 inches long, and we're going to be 6 inches wide in the middle. This is the pattern that we have, that we use, and you can create your own. So we're just going to get this out, lay it out, and we're going to hand cut this. Take our scratch awl and go around the sides. Get your outside shape of your back cinch. On here, on our pattern, we have some marks on here that we use for references for our stitch grooves, our keepers, and our pattern. And I will mark these as we're right here. Okay, so now on my back cinch, I have the outline drawn. I have my marks in for my buckles and my stitches, and where my clip and D will go in that 1-inch slot punch. Now from here, we can go ahead and start cutting this out. Okay, got our back cinch all the way cut out now. And from this point, before I go any further, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take and flip the back cinch over on the rough outside. We're going to build it on the smooth outside. So on the rough outside, what we're going to do is we're going to come down to our ends, and we're going to probably come in about 1 inch or so. We're going to put a nice smooth bevel on them. And I'm going to take, and I can do this with my round knife, or you can do it with a French edger, whatever you prefer. Okay, we're going to get this down to almost paper thin on both sides. I'm going to switch. I'm going to use my French edger on this one. So I got both sides. I got a nice about 1-inch bevel on each end of them. Okay, so I'm going to flip my back cinch to the front side now. We're going to go ahead and start putting in our stitch grooves and our pattern. That should be okay. So I've grabbed my pattern for my stitch that we're going to do on this back cinch today. I've grabbed my stitch groover, a ruler, and my scratch awl. So I've set this to about 1/4 inch off the edge. When I come in to do this, I have marks already on here where I want the stitch pattern to end. So I'm going to come up just to the dot that I have marked on here, and I'm going to run it all the way down to the other dot on the other side of the back cinch. Okay, so now after I got the outside stitch groove, I'm gonna come in with my ruler, my scratch awl. I'm gonna mark in we're gonna put a W in the top of this for our stitches. So we got a few dots down here on the bottom, we got a few dots up here on the top. This is where the top of our stitching is gonna be, and this is where the bottom of our stitching is gonna be on our pattern that we're doing today. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna come in on this top dot and connect to the first bottom dot. Okay, I'm gonna come from the middle, I'm gonna connect to that same bottom dot that we just drew to. Then from the same top dot, we're gonna go to the next to me on this bottom dot. And the same, top to the same one. So what we're doing is we're building a W right here. Okay, we're gonna do this on both sides of the back cinch. Okay, so we got a W here and we got a W here. So from here, what I'm gonna do is I've got this football shape that we have here. This is gonna be part of our stitch pattern. It also helps with our 1-inch slot, plus it helps us place the hole in for our number 9 copper rivet. So I'm gonna get this pretty well leveled with the back cinch. I'm gonna mark where my hole needs to go. I'm gonna draw the outside of my football. Okay. After that, I've got this other pattern. It's long and it's kind of got a point to the end. What I'm going to do with this one is I'm going to come back into the bottom end of this back cinch, and I'm going to line up. I've got 2 dots right here where my keeper needs to start. I'm going to line up here and I'm going to line the nose of this with the end of my football. So now my back cinch should be all laid out. We've got our stitch groove in. We've got our marks where our decorative stitching needs to go. We got it marked out for our 1-inch slot and our hole for our rivet. Also down here, when we get to the bottom of this, I've made some dots for where our slot needs to go for our buckles. All right, so now we've got all laid out for our back cinch where we need to go. Now I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna take my 1-inch slot punch and my dry punch, and I'm gonna start cutting out these holes. Okay, so I'm gonna take my 1-inch slot punch, and I'm gonna go to the mark in the center of my back cinch, and I'm gonna knock this one out. Okay, after I got my 1-inch slot punched out, I'm gonna come in with my dry punch, and I'm gonna hit that one out too. Okay. Now I'm going to move down to my end of my back cinch and get these slots punched out for our hardware. We'll move to the other side and get that one punched out also. Okay, so now your back cinch should look like this. We've got our slot punched out for our flank buckle. We have our slot punched out for our clip and D and our rivet, and on the other side for our other flank buckle. So now after we got our slots punched out, we're gonna go ahead and start working on burnishing and edging this back cinch and the keepers. I like to take these keepers and I like to set them in a bucket for about 10 seconds or so they can get enough good water in them so we can form them around our back billet pieces that we're gonna put in here to shape them, okay? So after they've got some moisture in them, I'm gonna take my stitch groover once again, and I'm just gonna go on the long side of these keepers. Okay, so I got those stitch grooved. Now I'm gonna come over here to my back cinch and I'm gonna dunk just the bottom end of this back cinch in the water. So it looks like this on the ends, maybe 6 to 9 inches worth of water on the ends. Okay, so now we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna start edging and burnishing these. On the keepers, we're just gonna do the half moon shaped pieces. Let me rephrase that. On these keepers, what we're going to do is we're going to edge and burnish the whole keeper. If you were to put the keeper right on the back cinch how it is now, you're not going to end up reaching the other parts of it. So we'll edge and burnish all the sides on these. Okay, so I got both keepers edged. Now, while I have my edger in my hand, I'm going to move over to my back cinch. I'm going to start from the top. I'm going to edge all the way down to the end of that watermark, probably just a little past. Within right here, all I'm going to do is the top side of our back cinch. Okay, so I got my keepers edged on both sides. My back cinch is edged on the top side. The reason why we're edging just the top side and not the bottom side of these ends of this back cinch is when you go to roll this back cinch over, you want a really nice flush fit right here. If you were to edge it, you'd see a line in here, and it just doesn't look so flush, so we only edge the top side of it. So now what we're going to do is we're going to start dyeing and burnishing these keepers and the back cinch. So I'm going to take and I'm just going to run my dye pen across our edges a few times. Make sure you get enough dye on the edges of these, make them look nice. Okay, so after I get all those dyed, I'm going to come in with my piece of canvas with a little bit of beeswax on them and hit all these edges, make them really nice and slick and shiny. Okay, so I got my keepers done. I'm going to come back and I'm going to work on the back cinch. It's a little bit bigger piece, so I'm going to work kind of on the edge of the table to get these really nice and slicked up and shiny. After I get this edge all nice and shiny, I'm going to come back and I'm going to hit my keepers one more time. Make sure they're nice and dark and will match the back cinch. After I get them dyed again, I'm going to hit them one more time with my canvas, shine them up. Okay, so I got my back cinch edges just on the top. They're edged and burnished and dyed. My keepers are nice and edged and burnished and dyed. Got a really nice, clean, nice finish on them. Now we're going to go ahead and we are going to install our hardware in these. Now we're going to go ahead and we're going to install these flank buckles on the end of our back cinch. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to take and I'm actually going to come back and work on my Latigo liner that I have on the back of this cinch we're going to do. And what we're going to do is we're going to do the same thing as the ends of this 6-inch back cinch. We want a good nice bevel on the end of our liner. So I'm just going to come in and get this down to paper thin on the ends. And it's going to be about the same. We want a 1-inch bevel on the ends of our Latigo liner. So we got our ends beveled on our Latigo. Now what we're going to do is we're going to take our back cinch, we're going to lay it on there kind of in the rough spot where we're going to have it. And what I like to do right now is I like to mark out where my D is going to go and where my rivet's going to come through the bottom of the back cinch. So I'm just going to take a pen and make a mark on those 2 holes. Those are just going to be reference points for you when you go to put your Latigo liner on the back of your back cinch and to set your rivets. Okay, so now after I got this drawn on, I'm going to move that out of the way and I'm going to come over and I'm going to flip my back cinch onto the front side, which is the smooth side for this. I'm going to go ahead and start installing my flank buckles. What we do first, what I like to do also, is I like to put in my buckles first before I glue. They make a mess if you have them glued and you try to install them. So I'm going to get them in about where I need them to be. Okay, I got my flank buckles in there. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull these down where I want them. I want these ends to be really nice and flush. I don't want anything overhanging. At this point, I'm going to come in and I'm just going to make a little bit of a mark where the end of that back cinch comes over and touches. The reasoning for that mark too is what it's going to do is it's going to act as a glue line for you, so you don't glue farther down than what you need at this point. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to take this glue and I'm going to come in and I'm going to glue just down below that flank buckle down to that line that I've created on the back of the back cinch. And then on the opposite side where that tab is, I'm going to glue there also. Don't glue any farther than what you've went on your slot. Stay up on the bigger, wider piece of your back cinch. From there, we're just going to let our glue tack up for just a minute, and then we'll go ahead and set our folds. So after you let your glue tack up for just a minute, we're going to fold our folds down so they're level with the outside of our back cinch. And we're going to stick it right there to that line that we've created. I like to take my flank buckle and I like to go to kind of an edge of a table. I like to pull them down and get them kind of set in there. So after I've pulled on those flank buckles, cut and get them set in, I'm going to come in with my glass slicker. I'm going to come to the edge and I'm just going to make sure they're pushed down really nice and they're really nice and stuck. So now after we've got these folded down, got them set and our flank buckles where we want them, we're going to go ahead and we're going to glue our Latigo liner to the back of our back cinch. On my pattern that I have today, I've got some dots right here below these flank buckles. These are going to be reference points for where the edge of my Latigo is going to go. So we're not going to glue anything past those. If you get glue past, then you got glue where you don't need it. So now we're going to go ahead and we're going to start gluing around our Latigo liner. When gluing this, just a little trick and tip on this Latigo liner is you want to take and you want to almost glue like a square around your lines. So it's easier to get in there and separate that Latigo from the back of your cinch so you can get your clip and D in there if you're going to build them with clip and D. So I'm going to go ahead and glue this whole Latigo liner. Okay. Now we got our Latigo liner all nice and glued. We're going to switch over and we're going to glue onto the back of our back cinch now. So we're going to come over here. We're going to go off these dots that we've created here. We're going to glue down from them. I like to, from my dots, since this is smoothed out up, I like to come from my dots and I like to scratch down on them. I like to use preferably a point knife for this. Just roughens it up and helps that glue set in there. Okay, so now we're going to go ahead and start gluing this thing. Same thing on your back cinch. You want to make sure you glue a square around your holes. Okay, so after you get your liner and your back cinch all glued up, we're going to give it just a minute, tack up, and we'll go ahead and stick that Latigo onto the back side of this. So since you let your glue dry, we're going to go ahead and stick this Latigo on the back of your back cinch. I'm going to come in and I'm going to set my Latigo just below my reference dot. Come in here and lay it across on the back, okay? Making sure that you have some overhanging your back cinch, okay? Now from here, I'm just gonna take my glass slicker. I'm gonna come in and I'm gonna make sure all my glue is nice and stuck in place where I'd like it to be. Okay? After that, you should be looking like this. You should have a little bit of Latigo hanging over off the edges, nice and stuck. Now we're going to go ahead and we're going to sew our outside of our back cinch. So now since we got our backer glued onto the back of our back cinch, we're going to go ahead and move over to the sewing machine and start sewing into our pattern and sewing that liner onto the back of our back cinch. We're also going to put our keepers on at this point while we're already right here. To start out the sewing on this, we're going to go ahead and come in off our W just a little bit. And we're going to start sewing from there. And what we're going to do when we come in here, we're going to just sew the outline of our back cinch. So from right here, what we're gonna do is we're gonna follow this line that we've created to come up to our top of our point on our back cinch. We're not gonna keep coming around to this point. We're just gonna come straight off. We're gonna make a triangle and head back the other way. And when making these turns on the sewing machine that I have, the best way to do this is if you stand on your pedal and bring your feet up, turn around, then you don't get your marks up here. Go ahead and start and head the other way. And now we're just gonna come down and we're gonna come right back over where we started and we're just gonna double stitch these in. Okay, so now we've sewn the outside of our back cinch all the way around. Now we can go ahead, we can burn these threads off and we're gonna go ahead and install our keepers on the ends of these now. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna take our keeper and we're gonna come back in and we're gonna lay it down in to this reference point that we've created on our back cinch. This reference point is gonna be right where your top of your keeper comes in and meets your stitch groove. We're gonna go ahead and we're gonna start sewing here and we're gonna work our way around our back cinch into the next side and install our other keeper. At this point, we're only sewing one side of our keeper until we make it back around to the other side. I'm gonna keep sewing and work my way all the way down to the end of the keeper. When I get to the very end, getting ready to drop off this other side, I'm gonna flip and I'm gonna put my sewing machine in reverse and I'm gonna back stitch about 3. I'm gonna put it back and forward and I'm gonna keep going. When you come to drop off this keeper, make sure you take it really nice and slow. When your feet come off the end of that, it can make you jump and get a long stitch. So I like to come in really nice and slow. Watch how my feet's coming in when I drop off. So I keep my stitches the same length. Okay, from here we're gonna start into our decorative stitch on our back cinch. Okay, when I get down to the other side of this, I wanna make sure I don't go past my reference point that I have down in here, because this is where the bottom of your keeper is gonna touch with that reference point. If you sew too far, you're not gonna make your keeper. So I'm gonna go ahead and grab this other keeper and I'm gonna start sewing up to it. Okay, and then I'm just gonna gently work my way up onto the top of the keeper. It's gonna be the same thing. When you hit that edge, it will wanna jump up there and create a long stitch. So be careful and take your time as you climb on these keepers. And I'm gonna come in and I'm gonna stitch 3 on top of this keeper. I'm gonna go ahead and put my sewing machine in reverse again. I'm gonna back stitch these. Go ahead, flip it forward and run to the other end of it. Okay, so I've hit the end of the keeper again. So I'm gonna go ahead, I'm gonna put my sewing machine in reverse again. I'm gonna back stitch 3 before I come forward and drop off this keeper. Okay, so I've hit the top of my mark right here, so I'm gonna go ahead and turn this back cinch to me. When I do this, I'm gonna roll this keeper away from me. Okay, so I can come in and start building that line that we've created in there for our decorative stitching. So I'm gonna sew so far, and I have another reference mark on here. This is where that other half of that keeper is gonna come in. So I'm gonna take and kind of fold this keeper in on itself so I can get it compressed to where I can move it up to that reference point. I'm just gonna come in, I'm gonna start sewing in my other side of my keeper. Same thing, I'm gonna come in 3 stitches, I'm gonna back stitch 3. Okay, so I'm coming up to this other keeper, make sure you fold it, get it lined up with your reference marks if you have any on your pattern that you have. Come in and go ahead and start sewing your other keeper on. 2, 3. Okay, I'm going to pull that keeper back again. I come in, I'm going to create my decorative stitching in here. Okay, so I'm gonna hit this other reference point. I'm gonna pull my keeper back over across it. Go ahead and stitch this last part of the keeper on here. Okay, so now we should be sewn all the way around. We've got our decorative stitching in here. We have both our keepers are already sewn on and in place, and now we can go ahead, trim this up, get it edged and burnished, mold these in. So now what we're gonna do, we're gonna go ahead and trim this latigo off this back cinch. So I'm gonna come in here with my round knife, and I'm just gonna stay nice and tight to the edge of the back cinch. Okay, we've got our latigo all nice and trimmed up now. It's all really nice and flush with the edge of your back cinch. All right, so now since we got this all trimmed up, we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna set this clip and D in here and get this all set in a nice way, and then we'll go ahead and edge and burnish this and finish up the product. So what I'm gonna do for this is I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna take my heel pry tool. I'm gonna come in, I'm gonna make sure that slot's open, really nice, okay? I'm also going to take my punch that I had earlier. I'm just gonna punch the rest of the way through that latigo. Now I'm gonna take my clip and D, I'm gonna insert it in that 1-inch slot that we've created. Making sure it's lined up and we can see the clip and D down through the hole right here. From here I'm gonna take, and I'm gonna put the flat side of my rivet on the latigo and push my rivet up through. I'm gonna go ahead and set this rivet. Now we've got all our hardware set in. We're gonna go ahead and edge and burnish the edge of this. I'm gonna go ahead, I like to wet my edges first before I start edging and burnishing anything that I do. Okay, got the front side done. We're gonna flip it over. We're actually gonna edge all the rest of the latigo. Okay, so now I got the front side edged and all of my latigos edged. Now we're gonna go ahead and dye this and get a really nice dark edge to it. Finish. Okay, so I'll come in with my dye pen. I'm just gonna go ahead and hit all the edges once again. Okay, so we got some dye on our edges now. I'm gonna go ahead and hit it with just a little bit more water, and we'll go ahead and slick this up. All right, so now I'm gonna come to the edge of the table and burnish this. Get a really nice, glossy, slick edge to it. Okay, so now we got a really nice, glossy edge, slick edge to this. Now we can go ahead and we can put our filler pieces in here, and we can get these keepers all nice and formed in, let them dry overnight. Go ahead and take our glass slicker, and we'll get these all nice and smoothed out. Okay, when you get your keepers all nice and slicked out and shaped how you want, go ahead and let them dry, and your back cinch is done. Thank you guys for watching today on how to build a 6-inch back cinch. If you would like to see more videos and things like this, go ahead and subscribe to our ShopTalk channel on YouTube or subscribe to our magazine.